They cut my salary by 50%, didn't tell me my role was being eliminated, then threatened to sue me when I took a better offer. So I walked out, no notice, no fear. 3 days later, their biggest clients started calling me. Then the CEO called, begging me to come back. That's when I realized, the best revenge isn't screaming. It's silence, success, and being the one they can't replace. Here's how I burned the bridge and built something better. Do you know how it feels when everything seems to stop? As if you could hear your own heartbeat through cotton-filled ears? When Hollis from HR slipped that paper over her foolish IKEA desk, that's what occurred. 60% reduction in wages. With instant effect. I sat there looking at the number as if I stared at it long enough it could change. Fucking 60%. At least not there. I didn't cry. I grinned. I did smile. As if I were a business robot, I replied, I'll need 24 hours to consider this offer. As if I hadn't been devastated. My car was where the crying took place. Terrible heaving sobs. There is mascara everywhere. Breathing so forcefully that the windows became foggy. For 45 minutes I just broke while sitting in the parking garage. When the company you have dedicated 9 years of your life to determines that you are worth less than half of what they paid you yesterday, what do? Apologies. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ellie Sloan Carter. 36. Miles, a wonderful 10-year-old boy, has a single mother. Additionally, I was Merrick Technologies Director of Client Solutions prior to that encounter. God, even after 3 years, this is still difficult to discuss. Would you please hit the like or subscribe buttons if you're viewing this? Or tell me where you're watching from in a comment. I simply need to know that I'm not yelling into thin air. That someone else is aware of the experience of having your entire life in jeopardy during a 15-minute encounter. In any case, Merrick. I began there when there were only 20 employees in a repurposed warehouse, the sort of company where everyone thinks they're making a difference, you know? We enjoyed happy hours, complimentary refreshments, and a ping-pong table. Everything that appears so important. Until it isn't. I got a job managing clients. However, I put in a lot of work. Stayed up late. Visited during the weekends. Missed school functions. Vacations were postponed. All of the things you should not do but do because you are creating something. Because you think it's real. I was also good. Excellent. In less than 3 years, I was in charge of our top 10 accounts, which accounted for more than 70% of our total income. I was familiar with their processes, issues, birthdays, and children's names. To me, these were more than just accounts. I had developed those relationships myself. Those client relationships became even more significant when Miles's father went to Austin with a yoga instructor named Sky. Yes, really, after deciding that marriage and fatherhood were limiting his potential. They were more than simply my job. My lifeline was them. My safety. I was elevated to director by the 5th year. I had 8 people on my team. Equity was mine. I didn't have to choose between groceries and electricity because I made enough money to cover our mortgage and Miles's asthma medication. I was able to breathe for the first time since the divorce. Then we were acquired by Martech Corporation. God, the all-hands meeting is still fresh in my mind. Our founder, Julian Chong, told us how wonderful the next chapter would be when he stood on the small platform in the cafeteria. How we would scale our concept with the use of Martech's resources. As I sat there, wondering why Julian couldn't look any of us in the eye, everyone was clapping like seals. $3 million. Later on, I discovered that Julian received that as part of the deal. He was fully vested and it was $3 million. The others? With 4 more years to vest under the revised conditions, our equity was worth nothing. The first half year wasn't too bad. More meetings, new protocols, and new email signatures. However, I still had my clients, my team, and my pay. The redundancy evaluations then began. They came for the younger ones first. Middle management comes next. Every time, a company-wide email about leveraging synergies and streamlining operations was sent, and the next day, nobody's desk was occupied. No farewells. Simply gone. I lowered my head. Put in more effort. Our customer load increased despite my team's reduction from 8 to 3 members. It grew worse, if anything. I was putting in 70 hours a week. Taking emails at 3 in the morning. Undergoing panic episodes in the restroom in between appointments. Miles began to question me about why I was constantly on my laptop, why I was unable to attend his soccer matches, and why I always appeared so exhausted. I still believed that I was safe. I was in charge of the connections that generated the majority of our income. I was required by them. Right up until Hollis from HR set up that quick touch base, that's what I convinced myself. When I first entered and saw Brennan Porter from Martech sitting there, I should have realized something wasn't right. Brennan made sure that everyone recognized him by wearing a Rolex and two white veneers. Corporate had dispatched Brennan to optimize the acquisition. He never referred to me as Ellie. Sloan, he began, we've been examining the organizational structure and we believe there's a chance to realign your compensation with Eliotet standards. Eliotet norms. As though I were a commodity. The paper was slid across by Hollis. Right there in bold was the new salary, $52,000. Reduced from $120,000. Brennan Realiot, this reflects the changing nature of your role, as if he were declaring that I had won a medal. The majority of client management tasks will now be handled centrally at headquarters. You'll be moving into a role that provides additional regional support. Translation, you still have to do the work even though we're taking your clients, your power, and the majority of your income. Of course, you'll continue to carry out your current duties throughout the transition period, he continued. Hollis repeated, of course, without looking into my eyes. Your choice must be made by tomorrow. We will need to start looking for someone who is in line with our new structure right away if this new arrangement doesn't work for you. She meant someone less expensive. Someone in a precarious situation. They were aware that I am a single mother. They were aware of Miles's medical requirements. They were aware of my mortgage. There was no negotiation involved. An execution took place. Despite the yelling in my brain, I said, I need 24 hours in a firm voice. I have some inquiries regarding the reporting structure and transition plan. Brennan, impressed by my professionalism, nodded. Hollis appeared to be relieved that I wasn't making a scene. I don't recall making my way back to my workstation. I don't recall putting my laptop away. I still recall trembling as I sat in my car, trying to figure out how to inform Miles that we might lose our house. My phone rang at that moment. Chen Rowan, my former coworker who had departed American half a year prior. I nearly didn't respond. What the hell, I thought after that. Perhaps she wanted to catch up. Perhaps I could act as though my life wasn't falling apart for 5 minutes. I said, attempting to sound regular, hey stranger. Ellie, she said. All week, I've been attempting to get in touch with you. Have you looked through your messages on LinkedIn? I hadn't. I had been too preoccupied with keeping my team from leaving, keeping my clients satisfied, and preventing everything from collapsing. Rowan said, listen, I'm at Nexus right now. You are aware that they are Martech's main rival? My supervisor has inquired about you. Someone with your client experience is what we need. Are you willing to have a discussion? Through my windshield, I could see the Merrick building, the logo they had plastered over ours like a bandage. I considered Brennan, his veneers, and his watch. Julian Chong, who sold us out and disappeared to his beach house in Malibu, sprang to mind. Actually, I thought tonight would be ideal, I said. My thoughts was racing as I drove home in a haze. I wasn't a moron. I understood what it meant to call Martech as rival. There wouldn't be any turning back. However, they had previously determined that I was disposable. I owed them what? Upon arriving home, I paid the babysitter, opened my laptop, and made sure Miles was already asleep after missing bedtime once more. I went over my job contract for an hour. No non-compete agreement. When I started, Merrick was too young and too idealistic to care about those things. Later hires had received new contracts from Martech, but we legacy employees had not yet received them. It was their error. I gave Rowan a call back at 9:30. Is it possible for you to schedule a meeting with your employer for tomorrow morning? Before I have to respond to Merrick. That awful, she inquired. Worse, I replied. They are preserving all of my obligations while reducing my pay by 70%. In fact, adding more. Rowan was silent for a moment. Then, yes. Give me 15 minutes. Right now, I'm messaging Asher. Asher Reed. Nexus Technology CEO. Martech's greatest adversary. The business that had spent years attempting to entice our customers. After 20 minutes, my phone rang once again. This is Asher Reed from Nexus, Sloan. Rowan informs me that we must get together early tomorrow. He spoke in a kind tone. Straightforward. No corporate nonsense. Yes, I said. I believe we could support one another. I assume Martech is at last carrying out their post-acquisition purge. That kind of thing. How does 7:30 a.m.? Do you hear? Asher stated I can meet you at the Westside Cafe, which is separate from both of our offices. Rowan informs me that you must make a choice tomorrow. 7:30 works, I said, astonished at how composed I sounded. I sat for a while staring at nothing on my couch after we hung up. Was this what I was doing? Was I truly thinking of abandoning the competition? However, it was no longer a ship, was it? Martek was tossing people over the side of the sinking lifeboat in an attempt to save himself. I retrieved my client files from my laptop and opened it once more. Not the company's official CRM data, but my own notes, details of 9 years of relationships. When contracts are stuck in the legal system, who should I call? System overhauls were being planned by which CTOs? Which businesses were dissatisfied with the latest service modifications made by Martek? Although it wasn't strictly confidential, the information was useful. Incredibly valuable. I had established these connections. I had earned this information. And I was going to see how much it was worth tomorrow. I shut down my laptop and went back to see how Miles was doing. I watched him sleep for a few minutes, taking in his little chest's rise and fall, the science fair ribbon pinned to his bulletin board, and the inhaler on his nightstand. I muttered, I'm going to fix this. I swear. I didn't get any sleep that evening. Not at all. I pondered what I was going to do as I lay awake. I wondered if I was acting too hastily. I was wondering if I was betraying them. To what, though, is loyalty loyal? Except as a line item on Martek's balance sheet, the company was no longer in existence. People who could cut me because they thought I was just a number. By morning, I had a clear idea of what I wanted to say to Brennan Porter and Asher Reed. I took care how I dressed. My strongest suit, the one I kept for closing significant transactions. Hair is flawless. Perfect makeup. Armor. After dropping Miles off at school, I gave him a closer hug and declared my love for him. Are you all right, Mom? He questioned, his earnest little face looking up at me. I replied, I will be. And I believed it for the first time in months. At 7:30, the West Side Cafe was silent. There are only a few of early risers carrying commuting mugs and laptops. Asher's height, silver temples, and casual yet premium attire made him simple to notice. Rowan, who was sitting next to him, waved at me. I inhaled deeply before approaching. Reeves Sloan. Asher got up and extended his hand. You've been talked about a lot. Naturally from Rowan as well as from almost every customer we've attempted to defraud Merrickson of over the years. I grinned. Well, those clients may be more receptive to dialogue now. He raised his eyebrows. Is that correct? Why don't you have a seat and explain everything that's going on over there? So I did. Everything. The purchase. The culture shifts. The manner in which they were destroying the business while anticipating the same outcomes. The workloads that are unattainable. The reduction in wages. Without interjecting, Asher listened. He looked at Rowan and then back to me after I was done. We've been waiting for you to call us for a while, Ellie, he added. Between us, the sentence lingered. I bought myself a moment by taking a sip of coffee because all of a sudden, this was about more than simply keeping my job. There was more to this. What does that mean exactly? I inquired. Asher bent over. It indicates that throughout the last 2 years, we have made 3 attempts to recruit you. Your devotion to Merrickson prevailed each time. Martek, however, is not deserving of that devotion. To be honest, we're ready to extend an offer to you that demonstrates how much we respect your connections and knowledge. A folder was pushed across the table by him. There was an offer letter inside. Strategic Partnerships Director. $165,000 base pay. 25% potential bonus per year. Health coverage that would fully pay for Miles's prescription drugs. Options for stocks. I was unable to complete the statement. According to Asher, fair Eliotet value for someone with your skills and client book. And if you can start in 2 weeks, you'll receive a signing bonus. I gazed at the digit. I was earning $35,000 more than I had at Merrickson. More than 3 times what I was getting from Martek. Why? I inquired. Why so much? Asher didn't think twice. Because you managed 8 significant contracts that Merrickson has taken away from us in the last 4 years. Because, according to our study, your customer retention rate is 94% when they deal with you, whereas the industry average is 71%. Because 3 CTOs have told me that you are the reason they continue to work at Merrickson. Then he sipped his coffee. Sloan, you're more than just an account manager. You provide a competitive edge. One that Martek is too dim-witted to identify. Something changed inside of me. A lifetime of undervaluation. Of getting half the credit for doing twice as much labor. Of grinning throughout meetings where men loudly echoed my thoughts and received applause for them. And here was someone who genuinely recognized my worth. In a low voice, Rowan added, there's another thing. Asher, tell her. Asher gave a nod. According to speculations, Martech intends to relocate all of its client services abroad in the next 8 months. In order to avoid having to pay severance, they are exploiting these salary reductions to drive off employees. I felt sick to my stomach. How are you aware of that? Teledyne was the source of their new VP of operations. 3 years ago, he did the same thing there. It is his playbook. For 8 months. They weren't merely reducing my salary. They were doing away with my work completely. All they wanted was for me to train my replacement. I was taken aback by how composed I sounded as I said, I have to pick up my son from school at 3. However, I can accompany you back to Nexus at this time. Before I decide, I would like to visit the workplace. Asher grinned. Obviously. We also want you to get to know the team. 3 hours later, I returned to Merrickson, really Martech Regional Office 8, with a strategy in my head and a signed offer letter from Nexus in my luggage. Brennan appeared impatient as he waited in the conference room. With the folder bearing my name in front of her, Hollis sat next to him. Brennan said, Sloan, without getting up. Have you decided on anything yet? I put my palms flat on the table, sat down across from them, and grinned. First, I have a few questions. Brennan let out a dramatic sigh. Today, we truly need a simple yes/no answer. We're overhauling the entire department, as we stated. I know I said, but I oversee our 10 biggest accounts. Who will be in charge of the Westfield implementation next month, please? What about the June contract renewal for Alder? Brennan gestured with his hand. Those responsibilities will be divided out properly. You shouldn't be concerned about that. I do worry about it, in fact. At Westfield, I assured Delaney that I would personally supervise their changeover. Additionally, Elliot at Alder expressly requested that I participate in the renewal talks. Brennan's voice hardened as he stated, those are business relationships, not personal ones. Regarding the offer, are you really relocating client services abroad in 8 months? I inquired. Brennan's face was devoid of color. Her folder instantly piqued Hollis's curiosity. Where did that come from? Brennan inquired. Is it accurate? That is proprietary business information. Therefore, the answer is yes. I bent over. Before or after I agreed to take a 70% wage cut to train my replacement, were you going to let me know that? Brennan yelled, this meeting is about your current offer, not hypothetical future restructuring. Do you now agree to the revised terms? I inhaled deeply. I had a thought about Miles. Regarding our home. 9 years or so of my life. I give up. Between us, the words lingered. Brennan blinked. Pardon me. I give up. With instant effect. He bounced back fast, smiling smugly. Unfortunately, according to company policy, director-level employees must give 2 weeks' notice. I said, check my contract. The initial Merrickson contract, which was never revised following the purchase. Notice periods are the same as severance periods, it says. That's the notice I need because Merrickson never offered severance for more than a week. The grin wavered. You'll have to move your accounts. I don't actually. My contract also states that in the event of a compensation reduction exceeding 15%, all transition requirements are waived, I said. I got to my feet. That was added after Trey Miller quit and tried to hold his clients hostage for a better severance package. You might not remember that, since you weren't here, but I helped Julian draft that clause. Brennan's redness was becoming intriguing. Hollis seems to want to vanish into her chair. You can't simply abandon your obligations, Brennan stammered. Observe me. I started to leave but stopped at the door. Oh, and Nexus Technologies is where I've taken a job. I'll be beginning there on Monday because Martech never asked me to sign a non-compete agreement, and Merrickson never put one into effect. I didn't get the explosion I was expecting. Rather, Brennan's expression turned totally blank. That was more horrifying somehow. Quietly, he continued. You just made a serious mistake. All of your correspondence and client encounters will be examined. We will sue you if we discover even the slightest indication that you have been stealing clients or disclosing confidential information. I was cold. I knew how these things worked, not because I had done anything wrong. I hadn't. Even if you were totally innocent, you may still have your life ruined by wealthy, powerful corporations. I declared. I haven't taken anything that isn't mine. However, I own the trust I've earned from my clientele over the course of 9 years. Additionally, I'm bringing it with me. Before he could answer, I left, my heart racing so fiercely, I felt like it could explode. At my desk, my staff was waiting. Noel, Anaya, and Tessa. The final surviving members of the 8-person group. They were aware. They knew, of course. News about dying companies spreads quickly. Is that accurate? Anaya inquired. Are you going to leave? I gave a nod. How about us? Noel appeared frightened. He was expecting a child. I whispered. Check your emails in an hour. Everyone. I hastily packed my desk. Pictures of the family. 2 Christmases ago, my staff gave me the dumb world's best boss mug as a joke. I kept the emergency inhaler for Miles. 1 cardboard box contained 9 years of my life. I was escorted by security. They stated, company policy for high-level departures. As if I suddenly posed a threat. As if I hadn't dedicated over 10 years of my life to this location. I refrained from crying. Not in the elevator. Not in the lobby. Not even in my vehicle. Rather, I took out my phone and called 3 numbers. To Asher first. I've resigned, I declared. They handled it about as well as one might anticipate. He answered, we'll have legal ready. Don't be concerned. Second, to Julian Chong, my former boss. It sounded as though he was on a beach when he heard the 4th ring. Is everything all right, Ellie? Julian, not really. Martek just attempted to reduce my pay by 70%. I give up. I also accepted a position with Nexus. Then there was silence. I apologize, Ellie. This was not how the deal was intended to proceed. I said. But it did. They are now threatening to sue me for taking a different job. A job that compensates me for my true value. More quiet. What can I do for you? I need you to remind them that you never instituted non-competes at Merrickson because you stated, quote, we deserve to lose people if we don't treat them well enough to make them want to stay. Julian let out a sigh. I will personally give Gerald Martek a call. This is incorrect. My 3rd call was to our largest client, Delaney Ross, CTO of Westfield International, the one where next month is when the crucial system implementation is planned. This is Ellie Reeves, Delaney. Ellie, I was going to give you a call. We must expedite the implementation schedule by 2 weeks. The board, Delaney, I softly interrupted. Merrickson and I are no longer together. As of this now. You could hear the horror in her voice. What? Where are you heading? Nexus Technologies. Asher Reed's business. Our fallback supplier. Indeed. A long pause ensued. Is the Martek acquisition to blame for this? We have also been concerned about that. The quality of service has been declining. Yes, it is. I will be deleted from your account as part of the significant changes they are undertaking. One more pause. Without informing us. Yes. Who is in charge of implementation? They refused to tell me. Delaney's tone became stern. For us, its implementation is crucial. The board is keeping a close eye on it. In the contract, we clearly asked you to do so. I understand. I apologize. Don't apologize. Please send me your updated Nexus contact details. We must speak. I had 23 emails and 14 texts by the time I got Miles up from school. 6 were members of my team who were sending Brennan's communications telling them to prepare transition documentation for all of my accounts and to ensure client continuity. Julian provided one, attesting to his direct communication with Gerald Martek. The others, from customers who had heard about my departure in some way. Miles murmured, Mom, as he got inside the car and realized right once that something was off. Why are you coming to get me? It isn't Friday. When I looked at him, I saw a handsome, serious little child who deserved so much better than a mother who was constantly working, under stress, and on the verge of financial ruin every month. I just said, I quit my job today. His gaze expanded. The one you work at all the time? The one that occasionally brings you to tears when you believe I'm asleep? I felt a little heartbreak. He had noticed, of course. Indeed. That one. He firmly answered. Good. I didn't appreciate the way they handled you. Out of babies' mouths. I informed him. I got a new job. One that will allow me to spend more time with you and pay more. And improved coverage for your asthma medications. He thought about it. Is it possible for you to attend my science fair next month? First row, I said. With all the embarrassing signs. He smiled. Nice. My phone rang that night after Miles had gone to sleep. A number I was unfamiliar with. Is Sloane Carter here? It was a man's voice, unknown. Yes. Gerald Martek is this person. I am aware of the circumstances. My blood froze. I received a personal call from the CEO and founder of Martek Corporation. I tried to maintain a calm tone as I said, Mr. Martek. Well, I guess we do. I got a call from Julian Chong. He's furious at the way you've been handled. I remained silent. Waited. Additionally, Elliot Graves from Alder Technologies and Delaney Ross from Westfield have called me. They both voiced their worries about your leaving and suggested they would need to review their vendor connections. I waited nonetheless. Are you actively urging our clients to follow you to Nexus, Ms. Reeves? No, sir. All I've done is let them know that I'm leaving the company. They have reached their own judgments. A different story is told by Brennan Porter. Brennan Porter threatened to sue me for taking a different job after offering me a 70% pay cut without reducing my responsibilities, and failing to inform me that the position will be removed in 8 months. I hope you will pardon me if I don't believe his account of events. Quiet. Neither the executive committee nor I approved the outsourcing plan or the pay cut. Yet they did happen. One more quiet. What would it take for you to return and make things right? It nearly made me chuckle. You're not serious. I take this very seriously. Alder and Westfield have yearly contracts of over 20 million. Others will follow if they go. We've done the math. Retaining you would be far less costly than losing those accounts. I did laugh now. If losing me costs you millions of dollars, then I'm worth preserving, but not if it simply makes my life impossible. Mr. Martek, can you hear yourself? Ms. Reeves, business is business. Here, I'm attempting to give you a chance. No, I'm grateful. I've agreed to work for Nexus, a company that has always valued me highly. Not just when you recognize how grave your error was. We are willing to match what they are offering. Moreover, a retention bonus. I was astonished to discover that I meant it when I said, it's not about the money. It has to do with respect. About 9 years of my life were thoughtlessly disregarded by your organization. It has to do with the fact that you are calling me now, not because of the way I was handled, but rather because it is getting costly. So what do you want? He sounded truly perplexed. I want you to be more considerate of those who remain than you were toward me. I want you to consider whether that is the kind of business you want to start after seeing what Brennan Porter is doing to that workplace. Is that all? Do you only want that? In addition to that, you should quit threatening to sue me for accepting a new position. There was nothing that I stole. No one was poached by me. I just wouldn't be devalued. A long pause ensued. At last he responded, no lawsuit. You have my word. Regarding the others, next week, I'll be going to the regional office to take a look for myself. I began working at Nexus 3 days later. Instead of giving me a cubicle, they gave me a real office. Noel and Tessa were part of my team, yes, my team, and they left Martek the day after I did. Anaya remained. Her work, there was a requirement for her visa. Brennan Porter was pursuing other opportunities 2 weeks later. HR's Hollis as well. Delaney Ross called me a month later to inform me that Westfield was relocating their operations to Nexus. She claimed that the implementation team they deployed was unable to figure out how to get out of a sticky situation. And they told me my expectations were unrealistic when I complained. 2 months later, Alder's Elliot Graves came next. Briarwood Systems comes next. Next is Tetrorp. 5 of my previous top 10 clients had switched to Nexus by the 6-month Elliot. I was very careful not to start those talks, so it's not like I stole them. However, relationships are important. Trust is important. Additionally, after years of establishing your worth, people start to notice when you leave. Gerald Martek fulfilled his promise. No lawsuit was filed. However, the regional office was completely reorganized. Quietly, the overseas transition was dropped. In order to better reflect Eliotet norms, salaries were modified. For me and many others, it's too little, too late. 3 years have passed. I remain at Nexus. Client Success Executive Vice President. There are 22 people on my team. I earn more money than I ever imagined. Above all, I usually always make it home for supper with Miles. It's been years since I've missed a soccer match or a scientific fair. I met Julian Chong at a tech conference last month. He hugged me and expressed his pride in me. He claimed that leaving Merrickson was the best decision he could have made for his career. I should have done a better job of protecting you all. I believed Martek would fulfill their commitments. I repeated to him what Gerald Martek had said. It's business. It's nothing personal. Isn't that a lie, though? It's always intimate. Our labor, our value, our existence. They are very, very personal. Acting otherwise is merely a tactic used by businesses to view people as expendable. The clients that followed me weren't the true target of my retaliation. It wasn't Martek losing millions or Brennan losing his job. It wasn't even my large pay or my lovely new office. Finding my own worth was the true kind of retaliation. Getting to your feet and uttering, "No, this is not worth me. I'm worthy of better." After that, I'm going out and improving it for myself. Sometimes I remember that encounter with Brennan and Hollis. Slipping over the desk was the paper. That instant when they believed they were in control and I was not. They were mistaken. Everybody has power. It's often necessary to push us to the brink before we recognize it. If you're watching this and you work at a place that doesn't appreciate you and treats you like you're fortunate to be there, know this. You have choices. You are powerful. You are valuable. Furthermore, getting even isn't always the greatest form of retaliation. The goal is to escape and create something better. Even if all it takes to make a difference is a one phone call. The problem with revenge is that it doesn't always appear to be about getting even or slamming doors. Sometimes it's about making a difference, living a life that makes you proud, and leaving with your head held high. I hope you choose healing if you're harboring hurt or anger. Establish limits. Get more powerful. Let depart with honor. Leave a realignment if you have experienced something similar, such as injustice, treachery, or simply realizing that your value was not recognized. Let's discuss it. Together, let's create an environment where honesty and strength coexist. How can one rise above, in your opinion?